Tab Talks presents Internet Addiction. Internet addiction is defined as excessive use of the internet accompanied by withdrawal, tolerance, and negative repercussions. When comparing the United States and China, 59% of Chinese adults as compared to 89% of adults in the U.S. are active internet users. The growth in overall internet usage is attributed to the growth in mobile devices. According to a 2023 smartphone utilization survey, over 80% of Americans owned a smartphone. That's about 270 million people who on average check their device at least 96 times per day. So if we looked at an average usage over a 24-hour period, that means on average, Americans are checking their phones every 10 to 12 minutes. It gets even more interesting in terms of how many times you actually touch your cell phone each day. There's actually a statistic that says a person touches their phone on average 2,600 times per day. And for heavy users, that number actually balloons to 5,000 times per day. Why? Well, every time you touch your pocket or fumble around in your purse looking for your device because you want to make sure you have it with you, the research counts that as an individual touch. Yikes! Oh, did I also mention that it's projected that we unlock our phones at least 150 times per day. A review of several studies showed internet usage to average about 5 to 6 hours per day, and there are other factors that figure into utilization. The more income, the more utilization. The higher the education, the higher the utilization. There was even a study looking at race in internet usage. 34% of Hispanic adults as compared to 26% of white, and 25% of black people used the internet. So how bad can internet addiction become? Well, in 2014, a 19-year-old British teen by the name of Danny Bowman became obsessed with taking selfies. It was reported that he would spend upwards of 10 hours a day taking hundreds of photos of himself, trying to capture that perfect selfie. And when he failed, he took an overdose of pills. Luckily for him, his mother intervened. An Australian tourist, while checking Facebook, walked right off the pier into the freezing waters of Port Phillip Bay. She was unable to swim, and though lucky for her she was rescued, it was reported that she held onto that cellular device during the entire ordeal.
The internet was sold to us on a lie. We were told that it would be a tool that will revolutionize the world. And it did. It's allowed us to contact people from all around the globe. We can look up any piece of knowledge about any particular topic. But what have we let it turn into? Well, it has become a hub of addiction. I don't mean alcohol. I don't mean hard drugs. I mean social media. Social media rules the internet, and it's causing many of us to go into a deep spiral of permanent depression. When we post on social media, we only post about the perceived good things in our lives. We only show the perfectly styled hair or makeup. We only show the 5-star resort or the Michelin star restaurants that we have visited. We show pictures of our beautiful wife, our loving children, our new house or car, and our adorable new puppy. The negative is almost never shown. We, in effect, only show the highlight reel of our lives, and it's killing us. 99% of life is not what we show on social media. Most of our life involves boring jobs, long nights working on reports, sleeping when we can, eating junk food because we can't be bothered cooking, and a whole lot of time preparing and pretending that our life is awesome. When we go on social media and look at all the smiling faces and beautifully toned bodies, we inevitably compare our mundane life to the highlight reel of others. It's an unfair comparison that makes us feel miserable. When we post a new profile picture, we sit there anxiously waiting for feedback. It's a nervous wait. Will people like my new hairstyle? Will they comment on my new toned body? Why are they taking so long to respond? And when finally somebody does write a comment, I love your new look. We get a hit of dopamine causing us to feel temporarily euphoric. But it's only temporary. As soon as we get a couple of more likes, the euphoria starts to fade. We go back to looking at other people's social media highlight reels and start to get jealous and depressed again. It's a toxic cycle. Social media does nothing to increase our happiness in the long run. It's essentially a drug, and the big social media companies know this. So why do we keep doing it to ourselves? Why do we keep going back for more when it's clearly hurting us in the long run? Well, the only explanation is that it has become an addiction for many of us. We can't live without checking our phone every 10 minutes. We need that feedback from other people to make ourselves feel worthy of their attention. The unfortunate thing, however, that unlike other addictive substances such as alcohol and drugs, we let our children use social media. We have laws in place that don't let our kids drink alcohol, smoke tobacco, or use hard drugs. But yet, when they're only 8 or 10, we're letting them jump online and play addictive video games or participate in harmful social media. It's wrong. We're hurting our families, hurting ourselves, and hurting society as a whole. Kids are literally killing themselves because of the harmful effects of social media. They're simply not mature enough to deal with it. Like buttons, thumbs up, heart symbols, they're all meaningless. YouTube forces us to try to get as many likes and subscribers as possible. Instagram is pretty much the same. We're no longer working to improve our true happiness and self-satisfaction, but instead trying to impress a bunch of faceless web users, all so that we can feel the temporary effects of dopamine. It's exactly the same reason why people use cocaine, except that social media is far more ubiquitous. Enough studies have been done to show the depressive effects of social media on the human brain. There's only one way to make this all right: to stop using it, or at least stop using it in an addictive way. I think YouTube's a great way to spread information and knowledge to the masses, but when it becomes a place where content creators go to greater and greater extremes in order to get more views, more likes, and more subscribers, it's no longer a social good. It becomes a money-making exercise at the expense of the mental health of the ever-growing number of susceptible users. Social media has turned into a monster that we would normally destroy on sight. But for some reason, we've let this monster grow, and it is slowly consuming all of what is good on the internet. Cocaine, heroin, meth, they've got nothing on the pervasiveness of social media. The internet has become a hub of addiction. We stuff our faces full of junk food, we drink gallons of soft drink every year, and if that wasn't enough, we spend our sad existences trying to show how happy we are on Instagram and Facebook. What a sad state of affairs. Let's stop this madness. Don't let this social media monster take over your life. Take the power away from these monsters. Switch off today.
My name is Sam Vaknin. I'm the author of Malignant Self-Love, Narcissism Revisited. To the narcissist, the internet is an alluring and irresistible combination of playground and hunting grounds. It is a gathering place of numerous potential sources of narcissistic supply of attention. It is a world where false identities are common and mind games the bon ton. It is also beyond the reach of the law, beyond the pale of social norms, and beyond the strictures of civilized conduct. In other words, as far as the narcissist is concerned, it's true paradise. The somatic narcissist finds cybersex and cyber relationships aplenty. The cerebral narcissist claims false accomplishments. He fakes skills, erudition, and talents. Both these types of narcissists, the somatic and the cerebral, even when they are minimally communicative, end up at the instantly gratifying epicenter of a cult of fans, followers, stalkers, erotomaniacs, denigrators, and plain nuts. The constant attention and attendant quasi-celebrity feed and sustain the grandiose fantasies and the inflated self-image of the narcissist. So in a way, the internet is an extension of the real-life narcissistic pathological space, the narcissist milieu and environment, offline. But the internet is without the risks, the injuries, the disappointments, and the hurt that is common in reality. In the virtual universe of the web, The narcissist vanishes and reappears with ease. He often adopts a myriad aliases and nicknames and handles. The narcissist fends off criticism, abuse, disagreement, and disapproval effectively and in real time by merely not being there anymore. At the same time, he preserves the precarious balance of his infantile personality by reappearing or by pretending to be someone else. Narcissists are therefore prone to internet addiction. It fulfills many of their emotional needs. The internet, of course, has positive characteristics, but unfortunately they are largely lost on the narcissist. He is not keen on expanding his horizons, on fostering true relationships with others, on getting in real contact with people. The narcissist is forever the provincial in the internet because he filters everything through the narrow lens of his addiction to narcissistic supply. He measures others on the internet. He idealizes them or devalues them according to one criterion only: how useful they are at being sources of narcissistic supply. Can they be such sources or not? The internet is an egalitarian medium. People on the internet are judged by the consistency, the quality of their contributions, not by the content or bombast of their claims. But the narcissist is driven to distracting discomfiture by a lack of clear and commonly accepted hierarchy, with himself, of course, at the pinnacle. So the internet, this anarchic and democratic medium, also discomforts the narcissist, makes him feel ill at ease. So what the narcissist tries to do, he fervently and aggressively tries to impose the natural order with the narcissist at the top, either by monopolizing the discussion, monopolizing the interaction, or if this strategy fails, by becoming a major disruptive influence. But the internet may also be the closest that the narcissist gets to psychodynamic therapy. Because the internet is largely anonymous, it is populated by sort of disembodied entities. By interacting with these intermittent, unpredictable, and ultimately unknowable and ephemeral and ethereal voices, the narcissist is compelled to project onto others his own experiences, fears, hopes, and prejudices. He uses other people on the internet to actually look at the mirror, to be reflected to himself. Transference and countertransference are quite common on the internet, and the narcissist's psychological defense mechanisms, notably projection and projective identification, are frequently aroused. The therapeutic process is set in motion by the unbridled, uncensored, and brutally honest reactions to the narcissist's repertory. People give feedback to the narcissist when he displays his antics, his pretensions, his delusions, and his fantasies. And never mind how painful this feedback is, it provokes the narcissist into thinking. It gives him insight. And in this sense, it's remedial, it's therapeutic. The narcissist, ever the intimidating bully, is not accustomed to such resistance. Initially, it may heighten and sharpen his paranoia and lead him to compensate by extending and deepening his grandiosity. Some narcissists withdraw altogether from the internet, reverting to a schizoid posture. They shun others. Other narcissists become openly antisocial, and they seek to subvert, to sabotage, and to destroy the online sources of their frustration. A few narcissists retreat and confine themselves to the company of adoring sycophants and unquestioning groupies. But a long exposure to the culture of the net, which is irreverent, skeptical, and populist, usually exerts a beneficial effect even on the staunchest and most rigid narcissist. Far less convinced of their own superiority and infallibility, having been exposed to the internet, Some online narcissists mellow and begin hesitantly to listen to others, to actually collaborate with them. Ultimately, most narcissists, those who are not schizoid and those who don't shun social contact, most narcissists tire of the virtual reality that is cyberspace. The typical narcissist needs tangible narcissistic supply. He needs to look them in the eye. He needs to press the flesh. He craves attention from real, live people, flesh and blood. He strives to see in their eyes their admiration and adulation, the awe and fear that he inspires, the approval and affirmation that he elicits. All this is not forthcoming from the internet. There is no substitute to human contact, even for the narcissist. Many narcissists try to carry online relationships they nurtured into their logical extension. So they try to conclude them and consummate them offline. They try to meet the people they've interacted with on the net. Other narcissists burst upon the cyber scene intermittently, vanishing for long months, only to dive back in and reappear, reinvigorated, and then to disappear again. Reality beckons, and few narcissists can resist the siren call of offline. They are therefore not true netizens. They are fly-by-night creatures.
Now, while excessive internet use is not recognized as a disease by the World Health Organization or the American Psychological Association, in 2019, the World Health Organization did include internet gaming disorder in the International Classification of Diseases and classified it more as a problem requiring public health initiatives. Conversely, China has labeled internet addiction as a mental disorder, and for the past decade, Chinese parents have been sending their children to boot camps to deprogram what they believe to be internet addiction. And what happened in these camps will shock you. There's one case under investigation where a 15-year-old boy died after just 24 hours at the camp. He had been sent there by his parents to be cured of excessive internet usage, and it was reported that the teen was beaten. There are other reports of these rehab camps using drugs, sleep deprivation, tasers, and shock therapy. And these camps apparently were approved by the Chinese government. Now, since 2006, electric shock therapy was used as a method to treat internet addiction, but it was banned in 2009. But regrettably, there are still widespread reports that these treatments are still being used.
Hello Internet, today we're gonna talk about the 3 reasons why TikTok is so addictive. It would be a good idea to understand why this algorithm, why TikTok is so valuable. And so I did spend some time in this video and this video to basically talk about the valuable assets would be its algorithm, but today I'm gonna elaborate on the 3 reasons why its algorithm or the business model itself is actually very good. Also, I talk about things that analysts don't talk about, so if you don't want to miss this kind of topics, remember to subscribe to me and ring that bell. Now, the very first reason it will be somewhat unsettling to people because it's actually very China specific. And in order to have a very good recommendation algorithm, you need to have good quality training data. You have to have massive amount of data that keeps on doing all those kind of personalization. And what you have to do in an algorithm is to actually have those data that's identifying the elements within the same video, because you and I can like the same video for a very different reason. I might like it for the reasons, for the tone, maybe for the voice, but you may like it for the color and everything because of the lighting. You have to have those kinds of identification of what's going on with it behind the video. With those elements presented, then the algorithm can actually separate us even though we like the same video. So this kind of identification is very important, and you have to have people labeling the data. But in the West, to do this kind of labor-intensive data labeling is so expensive because of labor, the minimum wage is so expensive. So it's often outsourced to other developing countries, developing nations. But English may not be their first language. That's also gonna be a problem. But when it comes to China, The data labeling side is actually, because everything is within the same language, so there's no language barrier, the error rate is reduced to almost zero, and the labor is cheap when it comes to data labeling. They can go to rural area, because rural area they have really not many job opportunities, and now this is a great job opportunities even though they pay actually quite a meager amount comparing to the cities. And again, when it comes to the unethical ones, you may have hundreds of people getting paid really little and cramming into the same warehouse to do all this data labeling work, and it's somewhat like a modern sweatshop. Now, I'm not saying that the parent company of TikTok, which is ByteDance, is doing this because they may have good treatment and things like that, but basically what you have to understand is data is cheap in China, and there's massive amount of data in China, and that is why when it comes to all kinds of machine learning, data is the advantage for China. So this is the reason number one why TikTok has its advantage, because it's China specific. It has all kinds of training data, data labeling that's enabled within China. Now when it comes to the second reason though, it's even more unsettling. What you have to understand is privacy is not a concern in China. It's not like there's privacy law, and even if there is privacy law, like most companies actually don't respect it. You see, there are countless articles about how TikTok's algorithm is actually violating the privacy when it comes to the West. TikTok doesn't just collect your user information or just your what videos you like and where you commented. It also has asked basically your phone specification, so somehow you can be triangulate to who you are. You can be fingerprinted in a sense based on the specification. There were also cases where the algorithm would access to your clipboard every 10 seconds, even when TikTok is running on the background. That means even when you're using Gmail, even when you're using other apps, as long as you have something copied in the clipboard, then TikTok would know about what you copied, then TikTok would know what you're likely to copy, and kind of triangulate personalization in that sense. This is a big problem in the West, but it is not a problem in China, and so that is how it's trained its algorithm to such a massive, such a strong opponent to the West, because the West could not compete with privacy lawless kind of algorithm. Now obviously TikTok has already rolled back some of its misconduct in a sense when it comes to the West, but still that already paved the way of how TikTok's algorithm becomes so good. So the first two reasons that I mentioned about, really unsettling, China specific. In the West, we may not be able to compete, but the third is also very important. When it comes to the third, it's nothing about the algorithm, even though it helps, but it's the business model. You see, outside of TikTok, never has it been so easy to create a viral content. No matter which platform you go to, even if it's Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, even Vine back in the days, every single content as a creator, you have to think about how do you go viral. But TikTok made that easy, because TikTok makes it so easy to reuse someone else's music, to reuse someone else's sound effects, to reuse a lot of the content that someone else uses. So when they are finding something that's trending, maybe it's because of a music or certain dances, then they recommend it to you, and then you can actually create the same viral content so easily. It makes everyone to be able to create a viral video, and this is their core business model, to help everyone become so viral and to make everyone such a popular star, a TikTok star. You don't have to spend all the energy to think about what's gonna be viral, because what you're creating right now is already going to be viral, because you're creating what's already popular. This business model, aided by the technology, aided by the algorithm, is why TikTok is so addictive. So these are the three reasons why I think TikTok is so addictive.
There's probably something you really want to work on changing in your life. But when you go to YouTube and you type in how to change your life, you've probably watched one of my videos and then watched 2 or 3 hours of other people's videos on the internet as well. And all this time, at the end of the day, you thought you were doing something productive to change your life. but all you did was fill your mind with more ideas. Well, in this video, I want to talk about how you can actually specifically stop wasting time on the internet to get things done in your life where it matters. Let's start with a really fundamental premise that I think is super important. Even just 1 hour a day can change your life. And that doesn't mean that you have to not watch your 3 hours of Netflix or go from 4 hours a day on Instagram to 0. It just means 1 hour. There's a story here I tell so many times about Earl Nightingale, where he passed a bunch of steel workers during the Great Depression. And they were all at this point unemployed, even though they had a skill. And they were sitting there on their lunch break every day, complaining that they're out of work, sitting around all together, trying to find some new work. And Earl went home and he was thinking, all these guys, when they came home every day after work, what were they doing? Because if they had dedicated even 1 hour a day over the last 10 years, each one of them could have become an open heart surgeon in that free time. And it wasn't sacrificing all of their free time. So for you, the 1 hour a day difference could mean becoming a YouTuber, or writing the book you always wanted, finding that dream person, or getting your beach body and keeping your beach body. It doesn't take that much to really change the direction of your life, but it does take discipline. So having set that aside, because I think that's really important, that philosophy, there are two primary things that I use. The first is a piece of technology called the Self-Control app. Now, there are a lot of different resources on the internet that are similar to self-control. And there are apps on your phone, there are computer apps. But for me, I just use the Self-Control app and I block all social media, all news, and any other thing that I would regularly check as just an ADD work break. So the second I sit down, I'm sitting down not only with a physical timer in my desk, but also I've already blocked all the places that I normally want to check. So I'm setting a system, but I'm also having accountability to make sure that I don't do anything. Now, the second strategy I use is the hog wild strategy. You might have seen my video on the 3-second rule, which is basically when you don't want to do something, just count from 3 to 2 to 1 and force yourself up out of your chair and just go beast mode, just to go do anything. Force yourself in this massive burst of energy. Well, for me, the hog wild strategy is, if I really don't want to do something, I set a timer for an hour and I tell myself, I'm going to go hard at this for an hour. And every time I don't want to be doing what I'm doing, I'm just going to remind myself, I just have to use this work until that timer's done. So once that timer's done, my work is done. I don't have to feel guilty. I don't have to feel bad. I don't have to do anything. For 1 hour, when that timer's going, I work. And when it's done, I can go do whatever the hell I want. So it really doesn't take much to change your life, but it does take being deliberate and it does take discipline. And for me, those two strategies, using some technology as well as using a smart strategy, has been really monumental for me to not use the internet. And honestly, if you think about the old days, how did people get so much shit done? Well, if you're sitting in a cabin with a candle and a book, what else are you going to do? Ultimately, the best hack is not being around technology at all. So if you want to get the deep work done, put all of that aside or leave it in your car and then have a quiet focus spot for a period of time. I hope that helps. I know none of that's really rocket science, but if you do it, you're going to see that it probably works for you too.